Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of We Talk, WeCrashed, covering the fourth episode of WeCrashed, this fantastic new show on Apple TV that is based on WeCrashed, the rise and fall of WeWork by the Wondery Podcast. I am one of your hosts here. I'm the outlaw, John Rocha, joined as always on this show by the great Nikki Fowler. How are you, Nikki?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm getting ready to talk about this show. And Griffin Schiller. How are you, Griffin?
I'm great. Yeah, let's get into this thing. This is a great episode.
I see you both chomping at the bit, so
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
get
yeah.
into this thing. 4.4 is the name of the episode. Just want to tell you something real quick. We announced this on last week's show, announcing it on this show as well. Hey, send us your emails about what's going on. Are you mad at Adam Neumann? Are you mad at Rebekah Neumann? Are you mad at WeWork? Do you like what we're saying? Do you not like what we're saying? Email us at shows@HollywoodCriticsAssociation.com. We will read select emails or comments here during the shows as we go along here over the next few episodes. And remember to subscribe to the channel. And if you're going to retweet this or post anything that we're talking about or the entire episode, make sure you include that hashtag WeTalkWeCrashed. All right, and speaking of feedback, we did get a couple of comments I want to run by this fantastic panel here and talk about, get their reactions to it. This one, the first one comes from Rana Ibrahim. It says, Jared Leto is the main draw for watching the show. Super impressed by him in this. Can't believe this is one of just few roles of him as the main leading actor. He's fantastic. And the first two episodes were hilarious, which is something I didn't expect but loved. Yeah, it was the humor. We don't talk enough about the humor. Did you enjoy the humor throughout the first three episodes into our fourth episode?
Oh, absolutely. Just even the dynamic between the two of them. Like I think I mentioned on the last show how that whole dating process of the first drink and just the banter between the two of them looks like it was a lot of fun to film as well. Also, Kyle playing Miguel at this Run DMC concert. You know, he's just bopping away, like
like it's no big deal.
as
having
Leslie's
fun.
like, "Are you really signing on to this?" You know,
He's like,
lots of funny parts.
And then walks out on stage. You're right. It's a good point. We got one here from Films 5555. I've dialed that before. Anne Hathaway is beyond brilliant in this. This chick has don't call her a chick, pal. This chick has range. She can do drama, comedy, and she can easily go to dark places without skipping a beat. After receiving strong reviews for this series, she is going to be offered everything. Okay, Nikki, hasn't she already been offered a lot?
I think so.
She's Catwoman.
Yeah,
She's Devil Wears Prada.
She's won an Oscar. I mean, is there more for her to do? But no. But I think the essence of what Films 555 is saying is that she is showing so much range with this role. Yeah. And certainly you interviewed Anne Hathaway and Jared Leto on the red carpet for this premiere here. And she looked fantastic and looked like she talked about how much she's invested of herself and the diet that she was on, the commitment she made. So certainly showing that kind of range as an actress here in this piece is showing more of what she can do. You know,
we love her in so many different projects, Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
But this one, she really just shows a different side and multifaceted. So it's just one more, one more wonderful role.
Absolutely. Yeah. Griffin, depth and complexity here from what she's doing.
Exactly.
And the show's letting her do that.
Exactly. Well, and it's the fact that it is a show and not a movie. So she's able to sort of like work that entire gamut of like her skill set as a performer, really, which I think, that's what's great about seeing a lot of like these big actors, these big names attached to projects like this, whether it be Jared Leto, whether it be Anne Hathaway, Adam Scott in Severance, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. We're getting to see them really expand themselves as performers in ways that maybe we're not used to. And I think something that you're always going to get from Anne Hathaway is you're always going to get that commitment no matter what the role is. Yeah.
And speaking about the WeCrashed premiere, here are some of the highlights from that blue carpet.
So it was really fun to dig into a character that isn't portrayed, that isn't out there in the sort of splashy news headlines, because there are a lot of those people sort of digging in and working sort of this whole process, and then that really sort of felt it when the whole thing collapsed.
Yeah, and working with Jared, how was that?
Incredible experience. I mean, he and Annie are both such professionals at what they do, and so to be able to play on that level in that arena for an actor, it's the dream.
She's so multidimensional. She's dealing with the stressors of life, but she's still on this, positive mission of enlightenment. What were some of the highlights, and what did you want to bring to the screen or to the camera through her personality?
What I wanted to make very clear was what I heard from people that knew her and know her, which is that whatever the outcome, she meant every word she said. And I wanted to show that. I wanted to show people a human being.
Well, when you play a real person, you have an obligation to dig as deep as you can and to bring an accurate impression. It's never going to be the person, but you've got to dive deep, and that's what I did. Yeah.
And did you get to chat with Adam and all about his time with WeWork to give you some insight into playing this character?
Yeah, I did, and I found him to be really charming and generous with his time, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet.
Can you go back to what you were saying about changing the world?
Our mission is to elevate the world's consciousness, period.
And how do you do that?
That's a great question. By living proactively and with purpose, by being a student of life for life. And by doing that, it just
By doing this, we elevate ourselves and then the world.
the world.
And how do your investors feel about that? Usually a company's mission is to make money.
Yes, when you have the intention of changing the world with what you do, when you have meaning behind your work, success will follow.
Adam, we're ready.
And yes, the money will follow too.
Mrs. Neumann, out of the shop, please.
All right, let's get into this thing. 4.4, directed by Corey Finley and written by Drew Cervelo and Lee Eisenberg. I mean, this episode, Nikki, so much to dive into here in this episode. We see Adam's issues with money. We see Adam and Rebekah maybe kind of starting to have some cracks in that relationship. Rebekah gets a new friend that Adam kind of co-ops and takes because he's almost like becoming this amoeba-like creature that is consuming everything around him. What did you think of this episode? Now, after these first 3 episodes we watched all together, what did you feel about what we got here in episode 4?
Well, I was really excited that we really jumped into a lot of the pitfalls of the company. I mean, they wasted no time. We're talking about the money, the valuation, and a lot of the mistakes that Adam is making through this. First of all, I love the opening. O.T. Fagbelly. I loved his scene. I just laughed out loud. We have the magazine cover that Adam is, doing this chaotic scene for. And I love the introduction to America Ferrera in this as Elishia Kennedy, and what that means, for us to learn more about Rebekah. There's name dropping for books, Ayn Rand. That's a whole after show in itself, but I can't wait to talk about that. And but it really exposes a lot of what who Rebekah is. I have a lot to say about her as a woman and a mother, and being a part of this business, quote unquote, and also Adam and all of his isms of, going to this conference and just, we're seeing the breakdown of the company. We're seeing the blitz scaling. Lots to say on that.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get to all of that for sure. Griffin, overall thoughts on the episode? As she mentioned here, a little bit more with Rebekah after we saw a very Rebekah-centric episode in episode 3. We get a little bit more. Rebekah has a new friend. Clearly needing someone to fill the void here with Adam seeming to be away, and then Adam dealing with the fact that he wants to grow so exponential beyond expectations, but needs to get the money or he's going to have to lay people off or close down facilities, which he doesn't want to do. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it was a really great follow-up, I think, to the previous episode, because I think what episode 3 did really well was it was sort of like the subjective experience of Rebekah, and everything was sort of funneled through her, so you were able to empathize with her way more than you were maybe prior to that episode. And then from there, we go back to more of like an objective sort of like top-down view of everything that's going on, and like seeing how she's rationalizing things, and just like it kind of goes back to the thing that like both her and Adam are just like master manipulators, and they're just all they're doing is trying to get on top and get people to give them what they want. And in Rebekah's case, I think it is like validation that she has like a higher purpose or something. Like she's not like, she's kind of like unaware of her own faults as a person, which I assume we'll probably get to a point where that kind of blows up a little bit, which I'm looking forward to just seeing. But just as an episode, I mean, I don't know if you guys got this, but like that opening with Adam banging on the wall and everything, it was like straight Tommy Wiseau. Like I felt like it was like, and that's not like saying that like Jared Leto was doing a bad job. I think that's just like the kind of like character that like that steadfast sort of just like laser focused vision, him kind of just pure energy, larger than life persona, which I don't know, that was kind of just fun to watch. But yeah, the fact that like it starts and it's like in 2016, WeWork is losing $1.2 million a day, and yet people are still giving him money, and yet I mean, like obviously they're like willing to pull the rug out from under him, as we see later on in the episode, but like people just like believe in this guy, or they just love what he's telling them so much. And then I think probably my favorite part of the episode is we see him kind of break down his tactic with his team, right? Like his like Javi, I forget his position in the company, but he's about to walk out, and he's like, "Look, I'm done with this. You treat me like shit, and we're nothing's ever going right, and it's more trouble than it's worth, basically." And then Adam goes through all the tactics, right? He's like, "Okay, well, what if I doubled your salary?" And then he brings in food, and he's like, "Okay, that's how you rope him in." And it's just like, this guy, he's just. Such a sleaze.
Well, let's start there, and I'll go back to you, Griffin, on this one. I mean, let's look at the storyline here. Adam and his relationship with money here. He shoots a commercial or a cover here, as you mentioned, for Bloomberg Business Week. Right. But then Bruce from Benchmark Capital is trying to convince Cameron, as you mentioned here, Nikki, Cameron to kind of understand what's happening. And Cameron drops a little tidbit in this exchange and says, "We've been burned like this before." So when is that going to come up? And for those of you who study Benchmark Capital, you know exactly what they're referencing. I'm not going to spoil it. Do your own research on Google. And yeah, you talk about Abby and Adam is pushing this idea of wanting to expand, wanting to get all these locations open, wanting to get all this square feet and what's going on. And he's getting confronted with the fact that if he keeps pushing this far, he's going to have to do layoffs. He's going to have to close down some of these shops. And then he goes to Bruce at Benchmark and in a cryotherapy session tries to ask him for more money. And Bruce, even with his bones freezing, says no and says this term which you mentioned, Nikki, blitz scaling, which is something I'd never heard of before. I'm not a business guy, but blitz scaling, that was so interesting to kind of explore and hear what he's trying to do. And certainly Adam is being put on the spot with the fact that he is spending too much money. He's pushing forward with this. They're losing money. It goes as far as 2.5 or 6 million a day that he's losing. And then eventually, of course, he has to lay people off, 7% of the company, Leslie being one of those people that is a casualty of the company. But we also see Miguel in a very flaccid approach to the situation, going along with things, hanging out with Run DMC. And then by the end, Masayoshi-san, who he's been kind of courting, using his father to do this at the convention there in Mumbai, he gets his Masayoshi-san to give him $4.4 billion. So there's no lesson here.
There is
no consequence. What do you think about
this? Is stuff, and we talked about this earlier before we started shooting. Is I went back and I rewatched some of the earlier episodes, just seeing how I could kind of like track his strategy going back. I mean, the fact that he did all of that to go to India, give like a bullshit sort of presentation in order to get Masayoshi, and like the fact that he did all of that for one person in the audience that he knew was going to make the difference. I mean, that's exactly what he did when he was at business school. He didn't really care about everyone else. Miguel was the only other person who put his hand up that believed in him. He was like, "Nah, I don't really care. I'm after you. I want your money because you're the person investor. With the investor, right? You're the notable person there." So it's been interesting to sort of track his I guess his tactics along the way here, and it just makes you. It makes you think twice about like every single relationship in his life. I mean, especially down to like the relationship with his father. Obviously, we knew that there was like some, it was a bit tumultuous there, and we definitely get a look inside of that, which is probably one of the saddest parts of the episode for sure. But even like more than that, it's like, okay, well, like him and Rebekah, he's not even like giving Rebekah the time of day. He's like, yes, okay, he's like occupied with business or whatnot, but he's like, he goes home, he gets high, and he goes to sleep, and that's it. In terms of like the money stuff and like utilizing his family in order to get profit, I mean, he's a guy who doesn't really have values, right? Like he's willing to do literally anything. And even like, it is interesting though, right? Because there's a point where he's like, I don't want to like fire people, right? He was like pretty adamantly against that. But then when he's backed into a corner and he has no other options.
By Benchmark,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you can either stop this ridiculous blitz scaling, you can stop spending money unnecessarily, or you can like let all these people go, he lets all the people go.
Right.
And it's because he found like, you know, a better prospect, someone else that could come in and then he can milk them for all they're worth and then go on and do the next thing.
Yeah, Nikki, this is interesting tactics we see him use here. Certainly, when the multiple false starts of Masa showing up here, he has people pretend to be laughing, pretend to be, you know, having the greatest time ever, offers them shares, offers them extra shares, which is, of course, affecting the bottom line here. So clearly for him, bleeding money is not an issue. We see the meeting with his people there without Adam there with Miguel, and they're trying to get Miguel to talk to Adam. They even have the water pouring into the cup with a hole in the cup, trying to get him to understand what's happening here. But we see what Griffin brought up here, Adam's tactics, right? This idea of going to that conference so he can pitch one person, not caring that he's leaving Rebekah and lurch, not caring that he's not showing up for his kid stuff. He's focused on getting this money. And in the end, he does use his father, use living on the kibbutz, use the communal living aspect of it all. Masa sees through him because that's why he's a successful man. He sees through him and says in the end, I went through this as an immigrant. I went through this feeling out of place. How crazy are you? And by the end, offers him $4.4 billion. So you have to wonder here, why weren't so many people willing to stop him? Why were they so snowed over about what he was doing? What do you think of this?
There's so many points. There's so many points to make. Well, first of all, starting with Soshi-san, sorry if I'm butchering his name, but you know, basically he was the most important person in that room in India. He was one of the most, and is, you know, real life person, a huge investor, and he was investing in tech. And it was interesting how Adam felt, you know, he needed more money. As we said, he's blitzscaling. He's going into 20-year leases. He's, you know, he's just not spending money wisely. I don't think we've really seen him spend a lot of time at a desk. You know, he's not doing a lot of the work. And most founders, you know, as a woman in business, I've had a couple companies, actually 3 internationally and domestically. And I just understand that sometimes the founders know how to do multiple jobs. And here he just has this one job of sales and, you know, manipulating and, you know, getting funding, even when you're not spending it right. It's like a misallocation of capital. So, you know, that whole dynamic of getting $4.4 billion in like a 12-minute tour, that's like his second time talking to him. You know, he says, you know, I don't want to see your business plan. I invest in founders and, you know, crazy versus non-crazy, that conversation. But, you know, I can't not bring up the elephant in the room for me is just to see, you know, Adam having this, you know, it's privilege. It's this extreme privilege to have his voice heard as a man in the investment world. You know, I love the colorful scene that they had with India, with the, you know, there were a lot of women in that conference. It was colorful, people of color, but the reality is that we have less than 2% of women are getting venture capital money. And that's current. Those are current numbers. And we talked about this on another show with Serena Williams, you know, going into the VC world, because she was astounded by the numbers as well. So that I love to, you know, dissect that part of Adam's personality of, you know, he's able to coast and why, you know, it helps you to question the industry and the investment industry of why he's able to do these things. That's what you're asking. How is he able to do this and why are they giving him money? Another little tidbit is, you know, Masa is basically, you know, he's into this blitzscaling. He's into pouring more money into businesses. And Adam, you know, not to go too much into the real Adam, but, you know, he has mentioned that was, you know, he was influenced by Masa on that. And it worked for the beginning of the company, but it was a mistake to continue to do that. But some of these mistakes, you know, it's you know, we'll get into Rebekah and Elishia, because that plays a part too. That whole mentality, you know, Adam is learning from Rebekah and vice versa. So that plays a part into why he's so careless.
I enjoy that we're not getting too deep into the nitty gritty of what happens here, because I mean that would be 10 episodes on itself. How he pitches everybody, how he gets this done, how he's able to maneuver and put himself in this position. He's clearly a sales guy. The show itself doesn't show you how intelligent he actually is in working out these deals and working out these situations, because what he essentially defaults to is he sends his team out there and says, hey, you get them to sign longer than usual leases, or that we're going to sign longer than usual leases, so they'll want to invest, and we'll pay higher rent than other people are offering. So it's almost like he's reverse buying a car. He's trying to like talk them up instead of talk them down.
The caviar and
the caviar, all of that
fettuccine.
Stuff's a very interesting decision to make. So clearly he is spending, and this comes from the fact that he doesn't have, at least from what we've seen in the show, what they presented us, a very strong business background, very strong knowledge. He was an entrepreneur who came out of the kibbutz or whatever, came to New York, felt kind of excommunicated, wanted to create something, and then found his way into this because of Rebekah's influence and his own desire to create something. But there isn't a foundational piece of the business that or a business knowledge that he needs in order to be able to facilitate this money correctly and be careful on the growth.
Well, that's sort of the whole thing. I mean, their entire like motto as a company changes from what last week's episode is to this week's episode. Like they're
getting deeper.
Yeah, they're like selling or they're trying to cure loneliness or solve like world loneliness, which is like
huge pivot.
Yeah, huge pivot from like last week it was like, oh, we're just trying to like change the world or something like that. And so you're seeing, because Rebekah doesn't really even know what she's doing, and it's sort of like as she's figuring stuff out, that's sort of where he's getting like the ideas to sort of like weave into the fabric of the company's motto.
I think, and you know, he can pivot as a founder. He has the right to do that. But it's the dumping of the cash and then getting more cash. You know, people are questioning, you know, did he go into this just to get, you know, a bailout at some point? You know, it makes you question the motives. We don't know. And it's such a muddy water and fine line on ethics. And, you know, we don't know if he did anything illegal. That has never been brought up. But, you know, an ethics line of, you know, there are companies like Zappos that, you know, have this work culture, you know, that ended tragically for the founder, but the company was run in a certain way. So, you know, it just has you question a lot.
Absolutely. And I think Jared Leto's doing a fantastic job in those scenes, kind of bringing that to life, seeing the manic nature of Adam Neumann, him running up and down those stairs, him being in the ice bath, jumping out, not having shoes on.
Yeah, when he had to pivot without the shoes, he's like, oh, you're not wearing shoes. And he was like, yes, I am. Is
that going to get me the money? I'm not wearing shoes. Yes, absolutely. Well, you mentioned Rebekah Griffin. Let's jump into this. Rebekah and Elishia. We are introduced to America Ferrera for the first time on the show here as Elishia Kennedy, and we meet her. She's dressed up as a mummy, while here comes Rebekah dressed up in the most incredible Navi outfit this side of the actual set of Avatar. It's phenomenal how she looks, and of course you can do that when you've got a lot of money, but also she's coming to this situation because Adam couldn't come with her. Adam had other things to do. She had paid $25,000 to be the organizer, and Adam's like, well, just throw $50,000 at him to apologize. But she ends up meeting Elishia, as you guys said, and Elishia Kennedy is a fictionalized character representing Soul Cycle's founder, Julie Rice. I found this online here yesterday, who became WeWork's chief brand officer in November of 2017. As the value rose in the billions, she used her expertise to globalize WeWork's brand more, and her work with Soul Cycle made Rice a valuable asset to WeWork. So she's sitting in. So I don't know why that is. I don't know if they maybe want to turn her into an amalgamation of a bunch of people who kind of came aboard with Adam. But we see her making a connection with Rebekah. Rebekah finally kind of having a friend at a time here where it seems like Rebekah's not feeling like she's connecting with Adam anymore. Elishia goes out with Rebekah. She's bitter about her divorce. And which is maybe a little setup of what's to come between Adam and Rebekah down the road here. And Elishia comes to visit Rebekah there at WeWork, finally the tour. And Rebekah feels a kind of, hey, this is mine. Don't touch this. This is mine. This is my friendship. They go into WeWork, and Adam immediately pitches Elishia to come aboard and join. And as I just said, in real life, it actually happened, but in the show, it happens off camera with Adam announcing it to Rebekah over Popeye's chicken. So just like an interesting moment to have happen here. But what you're seeing, and of course, eventually, and we'll get to that, what happens at the end with Adam and Rebekah, but what you're seeing is that Adam really cares nothing for boundaries or for, caring about his wife wanting to have her own thing. What did you think about this relationship with Elishia and Rebekah as it was going along here in the episode?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was super interesting, and it just opened up Rebekah's character even more for me. Like I said, they're name dropping books.
Yes.
On Ryan was
and Rand,
Rand was brought up, and for those who don't know, that again, that's another after show, but she basically is, she escaped Russia, communism to come here, and she's very controversial. She believes in selfishness, basically, to put it simple. And this is what Rebekah's reading. She believes in pure capitalism, and it kind of gives you insight into her character from the first 3 episodes where she's on that stage and she says, to stand behind your man and help them manifest. But then she cleans it up at the end and she says we should all be helping each other. And again, that's not really, this was kind of brought up, was she someone that felt like she's beneath her husband, or, it's all about him. But I feel that, Rebekah has been striving to find herself, and she's been trying to find a career. She wasn't very good at the acting, but, she's been trying. She's not someone, we barely saw her hold her firstborn in episode 3. Yeah. Now she's got 3 kids? I couldn't keep track. I think there were 3 that we saw. And, she's not happy with the way Adam is leaving her at home and not making her a part of things. And she's the CEO on paper at this time of the company, but she's not given any roles. I feel her job is really, you've mentioned it before on our last show, how important she is to the company, because Adam is repeating a lot of these, mantras that she's, taught him or disclosed to him. But it's just really interesting to see that whole dynamic. And, as far as feeling sorry for Rebekah, I don't feel sorry for her. I feel like she's really, she's into manifestation. She's a powerful person, you know, but she just can't find her way yet, or she hasn't found her way yet, and she's a mom. It's okay to be a mom in business, but, that whole dynamic. So.
But how much of a mom is she? Like, we don't know,
well,
right?
She's using her kids.
She used her kid conveniently to meet Elishia at the school. She's never taken her kids to school, it seems like. So,
but
all
is
of
that
a sudden,
is that a privilege thing, or there are people that never,
That's what I'm getting at. So
yeah.
as Adam uses his dad to pitch Masa, it seems like Masayoshi-san. It seems like the same situation.
Yeah, I don't think she's as bad as Adam.
Well, definitely not. Yeah,
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. She
was trying to bring them
worse
together.
Than Frankenstein's monster? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the thing I liked about this episode is how they showed both of them separately trying to get what they want.
Yes.
Sort of self-gratification in a sense, or just like
and manipulating people.
Manipulating, right. So I think that was kind of what I liked about the structure of the episode, is seeing how they operate. Like, now that they've been together for so long, how are they now operating as people? And I think Rebekah she's been the one that, like, Adam has been channeling to get a lot of what he wants, and I think he's also kind of rubbed off onto Rebekah in a sense where it's like she's now picking up on some of his manipulation, and I can see her in business mode when she's with Elishia, which I don't know if we would have necessarily seen before. Like at the beginning of the show, with her at the yoga studio, just sort of being complacent in that and being taken advantage of and not doing anything. I think when Adam walked in to the guy's office and just like, kind of calls him out for being a piece of shit, like that kind of like woke her up a little bit, and she's like, oh, like I can do this. I can sort of like take care of my own, or I take charge of my own life in a sense. And so I feel like it's kind of been a little bit of a gradual progression to where she is now with Elishia. And I don't know, it's interesting because I think the like her plan to bring her to the office, like her knowing Adam as well as she does,
right? How
else does she think that was going to go? Like she brings her into an office with Adam. It's like she knows that Adam's going to pitch her. So my theory is, maybe this is, I don't know if this is true or not, is that like she did that because she wanted to. That was the only way she could get through to Adam at the time, and showing her sort of like worth and value as like a co-operator or whatever of the COO of the company and whatnot, and showing her value and what she can bring to the table. She's like, oh look, I went out and I made friends with this person who is a powerful person you've been after for so long, and I just kind of like appealed to their humanity.
Sure, but she didn't know. She said she didn't know
about that
Elishia. Didn't know. So
she had to Google her. She really there was a connection.
Okay.
And she was only interested after she Googled her. Like seeing all she's accomplished, Rebekah's all of a sudden, oh, let me get to know this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
There was still a connection. There was still a girl moment when they met in the mummy outfit and the avatar.
I'm no lady, I can't speak to it, but I
don't feel Rebekah's motives are so really driven by jealousy or things like that. She's into this mantra, and I'm just going to give her credit where I feel that she really is true to her whole mantra, positive manifestation. And, maybe that could have been her career. It kind of is for the company. Yeah. But, just in general, she's trying to find her way outside of them not giving her much to do. That could have been her thing because she's actually good at it. She was, Elishia is very bitter, from her divorce.
From the divorce.
But that's showing a different side. So, like, Rebekah is very kind of, she has her moments. She's having her meltdowns, but we're human, So, but she's still, Adam and Rebekah are still together in real life today.
Yes,
so,
yes, they are.
That says a lot, So, there's things that people can learn from Rebekah's character.
Nikki, you get a $1.7 billion severance package. I would stay with you too. Come on.
There's divorce settlements. I guess.
That's true. That's true. But I hear you. I mean, there seems to be genuine love, and maybe because they both kind of operate. Adam more overtly, her a little more subtly in a manipulative way. But either way, watching Anne Hathaway and America Ferrera, great chemistry between them, bouncing back and forth off each other. America, I love when she gets to get on camera again because she's great in voiceover, obviously, with the stuff that she does. But like to see her go back and forth with her and a completely different kind of character I've seen her play in quite some time. And then Anne kind of negotiating this thing with Rebekah. And that's what's so great about her performance. You can't put your finger on whether they're trying to make her sympathetic or not. They're just trying to make her human. And as human beings, I'm sure if we are honest with ourselves, we've maybe manipulated situations every once in a while for our own personal gain, thinking we're doing the right thing. And in the end, we're trying to get something that we want in life. And so it's not, we shouldn't be so harsh on Rebekah. I think you're fair on that one, Ricky, for sure.
I mean, I think it kind of just speaks to like just how well these characters are written, right? Like the fact that it just kind of and acted as you've put, like they're giving incredible performance and believable performances, which I think really it's them in tandem with the writing that is making me kind of like unsure of what I think about them because like we were sort of saying last week I was like all on the Rebekah sort of like sympathy train and whatnot, and then now it's sort of like okay, well she's a little bit of a manipulator herself, so I don't know, they're fascinating people. That's really what it comes down to there. So I understand why we have an entire show about these people.
That may be why they got that money too. But I mean Rebekah at one moment is willing to take her kid to school so she can meet Elishia there and run into her. But then the next few days later, the maid or whoever there working, her assistant or whatever, says, "Am I taking your kid to school?" And she's like, "Of course you are. I'm not going." So it was almost dismissive. So she has that higher than or holier than thou attitude.
The selfishness.
There's a selfishness there. And of course there's a desperate, I mean, we even see that we go back to the Gwyneth Paltrow thing when she's Googling herself. That's still kind of ever present. Even the girl comes up, or the girl who works there, the other mom, who's there, and says, "I got the egg. Tell Gwyneth I got the egg." And for those who don't know, look up that story from Goop and the egg. Trust me, it's an interesting story. All right, Adam, let's move on to the last storyline here. Adam and Rebekah, as you both have been alluding to throughout our conversations here. Adam, at the beginning, we see is shooting that commercial for Bloomberg Business Week, and kind of a foreshadowing moment. Rebekah is told to get out of the shot very unceremoniously, and she kind of does a little look and then walks off. So certainly there's the beginning that Adam is taking center stage, and Rebekah's feeling like she's being pushed aside. He is not showing up to kids' events, as I said. Adam goes to India on the spur of the moment, just calls her from the car, and then doesn't even tell her when he's back from India. She doesn't even know when he's back, and you can clearly see they're drifting apart. Then we go to a dinner with Adam and Rebekah. Adam announces that Elishia's coming aboard the company. They fight because he's having Popeye's chicken, he's having meat, and all this in front of the children, and of course Adam even offers the chicken leg to one of his kids as Rebekah walks off. Rebekah is waiting for him later on in the episode because she wants to confront him before he goes off and smokes weed, as we've seen him do. And she is saying that you're not around. I feel invisible. What do I have? I don't have anything. You're not here with me. And Adam hears her out. She starts to get emotional. He's putting her and then says, "Listen, this is why I did it," and shows her the $4.4 billion and says, "This is all for you. I did it all for you." So, Nikki, is this enough to clearly they're still together, but did he have the right methodology in winning her over and saying the 4.4 billion is for you. It seems like he's now opening the door to give her something to do in the company.
I feel Adam will say whatever he needs to say to whoever to get what he wants.
Okay.
And I feel that includes his wife. And, we saw he was completely absent from, a lot of the family and, the kids and just what she's complaining about in that emotional scene. And I felt he just needed an audience because it was some really good news to come home to say, I just landed $4.4 billion in investment. We saw how careless he was with his father. And also, Rebekah was the one that was trying to initiate him to have this better relationship with his father. And he's like, don't get involved, So there's a lot of that going on. Don't get involved and, monitoring her. And, she's just an educated woman. She's part of the inspiration of the company. She's kind of tousled around quite a bit. And that, could be playing on her emotions. And, so.
It could also be that Adam is quite happy having her sit back and take this, because he gets to kind of take center stage, which is, he kind of likes having center stage, and he gets to kind of do what he wants to do without worrying about her opinion or her point of view. But that seems to have come to a head here in this moment with her waiting for him in the dark and confronting him.
Yeah, and how can most people be angry when someone comes home and says, "Hey, we just landed 4.4 billion."
That's true.
It's quite shocking.
Yeah,
So.
And we'll see what that leads to, certainly in her life. What do you think about this relationship here as it went along in the episode here, Griffin? And they're still together, but it doesn't mean there isn't a big explosion coming or a big fight coming or some kind of issue with them coming. What do you think the 4.4 billion solves here for her that she was having issues about throughout the episode?
I think it provided just like another little bit of a dopamine rush, like a false sense of security or something like, so now things are going to be better now that we have the 4.4 million or billion. Sorry. But of course that's never going to be enough for him because nothing is ever enough for Adam, as we sort of learned throughout this. But I think it's a continuous pattern of him steamrolling over Rebekah, almost constantly. He says he wants to provide for her and wants to do all this stuff, but he can't fathom the fact that the spotlight might not be on him. Right. I think is ultimately. I mean, we see that at the wedding, right? When the dad gives them the check for $1 million, and he's like not happy about it. He's like, no, I gotta kind of get into the spotlight. And I think it kind of goes back to the parents too. I mean, that first phone call when he had with his dad, he was sort of like sitting off in the corner, and he doesn't like want anything to do with
giving
his dad.
her the dirty work to talk to his dad for him while he's in the room.
Exactly. So you get the sense that like maybe he thinks that like his father didn't approve of his like ambition or lifestyle choices, but then like when you see them together after the speech, you see the dad go like, well, I didn't think I was really that harsh on you.
He says, if I remember correctly, you smiled a couple of times while you were in the kibbutz.
Exactly. So it's like this kind of like. The great thing about Adam and the writing for this character is like I don't actually know what is true and what isn't in terms of his life. Sure. Like I'm sure obviously what he set up on stage was relatively true. Otherwise, the dad probably would have been saying like, "Oh yeah, none of what you said was true at all." Instead of just, "No, I think you were a little more happy than you were." Yeah. It was so interesting. It's going back to the privilege thing. He is a privileged guy. At least I get the sense he was, who so desperately wants to be underprivileged because it like kind of puts him in a position for this sort of success story. And like when you think about that, it's like that's really gross, dude. It's like you should kind of like take a look at like what you have in your fortune and like own up to that. And
but let me ask you
to appeal to Masa.
Yes.
He's appealing to he thinks he's slick. This is Masa's story. Let me appeal to him. It's high level manipulation.
But do we need to take a look at something? I mean, there have been a number of these episodes, a number of shows that have been coming out lately about these people, and I'm stepping up. I've been watching these other shows, and I'm coming to the realization that there's not a lot of people who get to this level who are like the nice people that do everything nice, and the kids turn out great, and the family is totally satisfied. So, what are we saying? I mean, what are we saying about the pursuit of this? What is the show saying about the pursuit of this? Is the show saying that this is the way to go and this has always been the way to go? We've just been lying to ourselves in society that there's a way to do it that's really nice and really right and no one's going to have an issue with it, because it seems like people keep bailing him out. People keep giving him money, even when he's doing these nefarious things. His charm wins him over. The cult of personality yet again. So it seems like the show is saying, you may be upset about this, but this is more often the rule, not the exception.
Yeah.
And you're a businesswoman. You've run 3 of these. I mean,
there's a lot of shady stuff, that goes on, and not everyone.
Drop the truth.
It doesn't epitomize the industry, but like I said, I don't know if I said this earlier, but I've been to these conferences. I've been the only woman there. I've been the only person of color there, and there's like thousands of white men basically,
right.
And there's good and there's bad. I've dealt with a lot of investors, and I've had to have a very sharp radar on who is trying to use my company to lift themselves up.
Right.
That happens all the time.
Yes.
So it's a part of the industry, but I wouldn't say it epitomizes every part of the investment world, but it's a large part. Like you mentioned, other shows like Inventing Anna, she was able to skirt on hotel bills, and people were afraid to confront her because of who she said she was with this trust fund and this being this heiress. But again, big P word, privilege, and
these are based on real people. We don't have to mention the actual shows, but Anna and certainly Elizabeth Holmes there with the Theranos situation was a show about that as well. We're seeing that in this here with Adam and Rebekah, both kind of using their own version of privilege to kind of be in the positions that they're in.
Well, like at the end of the episode, when Adam gets into the car with Masa, and he's like, I don't want to see your deck. I just want to talk. Like that's the whole thing right there. It's like they don't care about your plans, all the like documents or these grand ambitions.
Anybody can make a deck.
Exactly. It's all about like the person to person connection. Like, can they like figure you out, right? And figure out like what you're ultimately going to do. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to like this kind of business, especially something like WeWork, which is an entire business that is based on just like a dream, right? Like a like something that isn't tangible, right?
Well,
like
also, but I think there is a purity in their initial desire. It's all the other stuff, and when money gets involved, all of a sudden you start to rationalize and legitimize. And I think the show does a great job of showing you that in the writing and in the acting and in the progression of these relationships as they're happening. So what do we anticipate now coming down the road? Griffin, I go to you first. What do you think we're going to be seeing here in the next episode? What do you think it's teasing?
I think it's probably that Rebekah might get like a more significant role in the company or whatnot, because he kind of has to make up for being a bit of a schmuck, I guess, earlier. And it's like, he's he got the $4.4 billion, but it's like that's obviously not going to be enough. And so maybe like obviously we get to a point where like Rebekah has a significant voice, I think, in the, or maybe not significant, but at least like she's in a position where
a stronger voice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think maybe that down the road, or probably next episode or so. Obviously, this $4.4 billion isn't going to last very long, so we'll probably see more expansion and then more just sort of like money issues. Just a quick side, I think one of my favorite parts was during those meetings where they were trying to explain the fact that they were losing money. I forget the actor's name and I forget the character's name, but the guy who I guess is their lawyer, or he's in charge of all their finances. Yeah. And he's basically giving them all these analogies, and he's like saying all this. His reactions, his performance, and just like the writing for that character was hilarious.
Was he the one with the cup and the water?
Yes, he was the one with the cup and the water. Unbelievable.
He's the truth teller.
He is the truth teller, right? Yeah. So definitely more of that. Maybe like I wasn't expecting us to get more of Adam's upbringing this episode. I was expecting that maybe like a little bit down the road, but like seeing that we've got a sprinkling of that here, and we can sort of see what's happening and what he's kind of like fabricating and what like that lifestyle is like, maybe a little bit more the next episode. But I think ultimately it's just like the continued growth until it all kind of like falls apart.
Yeah. I mean, Nikki, $4.4 billion doesn't come in those strings. You know, there's expectation. You've got to kind of dance on that puppet master strings now. You've got to come up and be as crazy as he's telling him to be. You got to expand as crazily as he wants to expand. that's going to cause some problems because clearly he doesn't have a team who believes in their ability to expand without being, without having a fire lit under their butts and their jobs threatened and other people's jobs threatened. And then on the other side of things, where is he going to find space for Rebekah? What is Rebekah's role going to be? So what do you anticipate we're going to see in the next episode?
The whole idea of just expansion, I'm really interested in seeing how they do that and how they pivot into the tech world. And I don't know if Rebekah will have something to do with that, how they're trying to build this culture, because we're really not seeing it right now. We're just seeing Lee sing and Run DMC. So, and also I want to see more of the employee side of what made WeWork so appealing. Because again, we're seeing Run DMC, we're seeing these little tidbits. We're seeing people get fired, but I'd like to see if they explore, what made the company so appealing for people to stay there.
Right.
Because, we saw in the summer camp, it was dismal. Right. So that would be interesting. And then to see what happens with Elishia Kennedy and, her coming into this company and, that whole kind of friend betrayal with Rebekah. They were having wine time and FaceTime and talking about men to now, her dating life, to now she didn't even know. She didn't even give her a little text that,
and she wouldn't even answer her calls.
Right? So, whoa, that is super dramatic.
You know what that means.
Friends and stuff here. This is crazy. So, that, and then also, I would love to see more of Cameron Lautner's character, OT, and just see the workings of everyone that was trying to talk him off the ledge. He repeatedly had people, even Leslie's character, she even got a little animated with him where he's just like, wait, slow down. He wasn't used to maybe a woman even talking to him that way, let alone a black woman. And she's literally saying this business model is not sustainable. Yeah. So super interested to see all of those intricacies.
I think that's a great point you bring up because Adam, we see him break that whole, hey, I love everybody veneer in that moment and says to Leslie,
watch yourself.
Yeah, watch yourself.
Yeah.
If you weren't with us from the beginning, you would not be getting away with talking to me the way you're talking to me right now. And what he's done is remove the barriers. Leslie now leaving, Miguel essentially becoming a flaccid co-conspirator, and Rebekah now taking the $4.4 billion and maybe having ideas of what she wants to do. So all these barriers and these obstacles are being removed from Adam's path, which is dangerous as hell. He's going to be even worse, I believe, and that's what we're going to see in the next episode.
Yeah, it was almost like he's ripped off the Band-Aid now of firing people. He's done it, right? That was the first time he's had to let people go. So now he feels he's in a position where he can just do that whenever he kind of sees fit, which I think is actually going to be something that probably happens later down the road. Yeah. I mean, you see it in the first episode when the assistants are kind of they're hesitant about him. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Yeah. And obviously something has to happen to make him this kind of intimidating figure that kind of oversees the company instead of the more friendly guy that they knew him to be when WeWork was still in its infancy. So that I'm actually very much interested in seeing.
Yeah, and I want to explore more of the kibbutz situation. We talked about him having 5 moms and all of this. How does that lead to him having this kind of separation from people that allows him this almost sociopathy that he has that allows him to behave in this manner? How much of this are we going to explore? So certainly looking forward to seeing all of that as we go into episode 5, and we will be back next week to talk about episode 5, break it all down, have a fun spoiler-filled discussion about that episode. Just want to remind you all that this is We Talk, We Crashed, and we'd love to get your emails. We're pretty opinionated people. I imagine you watching it are pretty opinionated as well. So send us your questions, thoughts, and comments at shows@HollywoodCriticsAssociation.com. We'll read some of them on air and debate about them and to see where we fall, if we agree with you or disagree with you, or if you've given us a new idea or new approach to take into this show for sure. Remember to comment down below, subscribe to the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube page right here, hit a like on this video, and share it on your social media. Nikki Fowler, Griffin Schiller, thank you very much. I'm John Rocha. This is We Talk, We Crashed. We'll see you next week with another brand new episode.